So there's a real hum in the political atmosphere in New Delhi right now. You know that feeling.
Yeah, like an anticipation. Something's definitely in the air.
Exactly. And what everyone seems to be whispering about is, well, the strong possibility of a cabinet reshuffle, probably sometime between, say, May and July next year, 2025.
Right, that timing seems plausible, and it's always more than just moving names around, isn't it? These things often signal bigger shifts.
Totally. They tell you where the government's focus might be heading, what the new priorities are shaping up to be. And look, while the usual stuff, performance reviews, maybe switching ministerial roles, that's all part of it.
Sure, standard procedure.
But what's really got people talking, what's making this particular potential reshuffle stand out,
Yeah.
is the distinct possibility that maybe for the first time, we could see someone from the Pasmanda Muslim community appointed to the union ministry.
Ah, okay. That is significant. That would definitely be a first, and yeah, I can see why that's causing a stir.
It really is. It's generating a lot of discussion, across the board.
For a community that often feels marginalized or unheard, that could be a really, really big deal symbolically.
Absolutely. Now, maybe just to clarify for listeners who aren't, deeply familiar with how Indian cabinet reshuffles work.
Good idea.
Imagine the Prime Minister's office, the PMO, acting like a very strict school principal.
Okay, I like that analogy.
They're basically reviewing everyone's report card. How have the ministers done? Their progress, their effectiveness.
Right, holding them accountable.
Exactly. And based on that assessment, some might get new jobs, different departments, maybe more responsibility, or less.
Or find themselves out altogether.
Or find themselves out. It's a serious evaluation.
That paints a pretty clear picture. It's assessment time, basically. Allows the leadership to tweak things.
And the timing here is interesting too, isn't it? It's expected after the BJP selects its new national president.
Oh, right. To replace J P Nadda. That's supposed to happen by mid-May 2025.
That's the timeline we're hearing. Yeah, second week of May. So you see the connection.
Yeah.
The new party president steps in and bam. Almost immediately, they're facing this potentially major cabinet shakeup.
Wow, talk about hitting the ground running. That's a pretty significant early test for whoever gets the job.
You'd think so.
It suggests the new president might have a pretty strong say in who stays, who goes, who comes in.
Yeah. Shapes
the new team, perhaps?
It certainly gives them a chance to make their mark early on, influence the government's direction.
For sure.
Now, we've mentioned Pasmanda Muslim a couple of times. Let's unpack that because it's crucial.
Absolutely. What does Pasmanda actually signify?
Okay, so the word itself, it's Persian. It means those left behind.
Left behind, okay.
And in the Indian context, it's used to describe the vast majority, maybe 85% of India's Muslim population.
Right.
The ones who are often socially, economically sort of marginalized. We're talking about communities like weavers, the Ansaras, or butchers, the Qurayshis, tailors, the Darzis, working class communities.
So distinct from the group sometimes referred to as elite Muslims.
Exactly. They generally don't belong to those historically more influential groups.
That's a really important distinction to make. It highlights that the Muslim community in India isn't monolithic, right? There are internal layers, different experiences.
Precisely. And that brings us to the absolute core of our deep dive today.
Which is?
This very real possibility. A Pasmanda Muslim being appointed as a minister of state, or MAS, probably, the speculation goes, within the Ministry of Minority Affairs.
Okay, and MAS is in Minority Affairs.
Yeah. And that immediately throws up some big questions, like why this specific community focus? And maybe more pointedly, why now? Why at this particular moment?
Right. What's driving this potential shift right now?
That's what we really want to get into.
Okay. Well, I think there are probably several factors kind of converging here. It's not just one single thing.
Let's try and tease those out. This why now, why Pasmanda puzzle. I mean, if you follow political commentary, a recurring criticism, often aimed at the BJP-led government, has been about, the perceived lack of Muslim representation in top leadership roles.
That's definitely been a consistent theme, yeah. Opposition parties raise it frequently. The numbers, or lack thereof, have been pointed out.
So it seems pretty plausible, doesn't it, that this potential move bringing in a Pasmanda Muslim could be, at least partly, a direct response to that criticism.
It certainly offers a counter-narrative, a way to say, look, we are addressing this.
Right. And it also ties in quite neatly with the Prime Minister's, often stated motto, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas.
Together with all, development for all.
Exactly. Appointing a leader from the Pasmanda community could be framed as putting that very principle into concrete action, especially for a group that many feel has been, well, overlooked for a long time.
It allows the government to project that image of broader inclusivity, definitely, to show their development agenda is meant for everyone, including those marginalized within minority groups themselves.
Yeah, let's be real. There's probably a strategic angle too, right? We need to be pragmatic.
Oh, absolutely. Politics is rarely just about symbolism. There's almost always an electoral calculation involved.
And Pasmanda Muslims, given they're the majority within the community, they make up a really significant chunk of voters.
The very large voting bloc, yes.
Especially in some key states. Think Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, places where elections can be incredibly tight.
Crucial battleground states. Reaching out specifically to this demographic, if successful, could potentially sway votes, maybe chip away at traditional voting patterns.
It could be a way to try and expand the BJP's support base beyond its, more traditional demographics.
From a purely electoral math perspective, engaging the Pasmanda community, trying to win their confidence, it represents a substantial opportunity. It could yield, long-term benefits in certain regions.
So as this speculation swirls, are there any names being floated, any potential candidates?
Yeah, a couple seem to be coming up more frequently in reports and discussions.
Okay, who are we hearing about?
One name is Gulam Ali Khatana. He's currently a Rajya Sabha MP representing Jammu and Kashmir.
Right, J&K. And what's interesting there, I believe, is that he's also from the Gujar community.
That's right, which is a tribal group with, deep historical roots in that region. Yeah. So his profile offers that kind of dual representation, minority plus tribal.
That adds another layer, especially in a sensitive place like Jammu and Kashmir.
It could be seen as strategically quite valuable, yes.
Okay. Who else?
The other name circulating is Jamal Siddiqui. He's the current national president of the BJP's Minority Morcha, their minority outreach wing.
Ah, okay. So he's already in a key position within the party structure related to minorities. He's from Maharashtra, right?
Correct, from Maharashtra. Right. And there's even been some talk that, if he were appointed minister, he might also get nominated for a Rajya Sabha seat.
Which would further boost his political standing nationally. Just quickly for listeners, the Rajya Sabha is the upper house of India's parliament. Members are indirectly elected, play a big role in lawmaking.
Exactly. So Siddiqui's current role already gives him visibility connections. An appointment could be seen as maybe a reward for his work in that outreach space.
And we've even heard, sort of off the record, from a senior BJP figure. Ooh. Yeah, someone who obviously didn't want to be named, confirming that the focus really is on bringing someone from the Pasmanda community into the, quote, national mainstream.
Well, that insider bit certainly strengthens the idea that this isn't just random speculation. It sounds like a deliberate, targeted strategy.
Right, it really does seem that way, a conscious effort.
Aimed specifically at maybe addressing the needs or aspirations of this particular community.
So to really get the potential impact here, we need to zoom in a bit more on the Pasmanda community itself.
Agreed. Understanding their specific situation is key.
We said India has roughly 200 million Muslims, and the vast majority, that 80–85%, fall under this Pasmanda category.
It's a huge number of people.
Huge. But historically, as we touched upon, they haven't really been at the forefront, not in political leadership, often not even in community leadership roles.
And that often ties back to these long-standing social dynamics. It's complex because while Islam itself doesn't endorse a caste system,
right,
social hierarchies, unfortunately, did develop within the Muslim community in India over centuries, often influenced by, local customs, pre-existing societal structures.
And the term Pasmanda itself, it really gained prominence, didn't it, back in the 1990s?
Yes, largely thanks to the work of Ali Anwar, a former Rajya Sabha MP from Bihar.
What did he do exactly?
He founded an organization, the All India Pasmanda Muslim Mahaz, and its whole purpose was to highlight these internal sort of caste-like divisions within the Muslim community.
Ah, okay. So drawing attention to the inequalities inside the community.
Precisely. And advocating for equality for those marginalized groups. He basically said, hey, you can't just treat Muslims as one single block. There are significant disparities here that need addressing.
That sounds pivotal, challenging that monolithic view.
Hugely important work, articulating the specific struggles of Pasmanda Muslims, mobilizing them to demand, fair representation and rights.
And if you think about the kinds of jobs often associated with Pasmanda groups, weaving, as we said, butchery, small trades.
Essential professions, backbone of many local economies.
Absolutely vital. But that economic role hasn't historically translated into equivalent social standing or political clout for these communities.
Often not, no. And there have even been reports over the years of discriminatory practices within the broader Muslim community.
Like what?
Things like reports of separate burial grounds in some areas, or social stigma around marriages between different biradaris or caste-like groups. It shows how deep-seated some of these divisions became.
Wow. That really underscores the complexity and the real-world impact of these internal hierarchies.
It demonstrates why focusing specifically on the Pasmanda community's concerns is so necessary.
And it seems the BJP, particularly since around 2022, maybe even a bit earlier, really picked up on this dynamic.
They seem to have recognized this internal stratification.
And they've been actively engaging, haven't they? Prime Minister Modi himself has spoken publicly about Pasmanda struggles.
Yes, on several occasions. I remember a rally in Bhopal, I think it was 2023.
Yes, he mentioned the oppression Pasmandas have faced. He even used language suggesting they'd been treated almost like untouchables.
That was very direct language, yes. Coming from the Prime Minister, that kind of acknowledgement is undeniably significant.
It signals a clear intent, doesn't it, to bring their issues into the mainstream political discourse.
It definitely puts it on the agenda at the highest level.
And we're seeing some reflections of this at the state level already, like look at Uttar Pradesh.
Danish Shahzad Ansari.
Exactly. A Pasmanda Muslim currently serving as the Minister for Minority Welfare in the UP government.
Right, that appointment certainly felt like a potential signpost, didn't it?
Given UP's size and importance, yeah, it often acts as a kind of laboratory for national political trends.
So, Ansari's inclusion there could definitely be seen as maybe a trial balloon or a demonstration project for this Pasmanda outreach strategy.
Here's another thought, a different angle maybe.
Okay.
This BJP focus on Pasmanda Muslims. Maybe it's not just about elections, though that's surely part of it.
Go on.
Could it also be a way to subtly challenge the conventional understanding of caste in India, which, let's face it, usually focuses almost exclusively on Hindu society?
That's a really interesting point. How so?
Well, by highlighting these social divisions within the Muslim community, they're kind of broadening the conversation, aren't they? Perhaps suggesting that social inequality isn't confined to one religion, that it's a more universal issue cutting across different communities in India?
I see what you mean. It allows them to engage in that wider social justice debate, potentially. And maybe, from their perspective, deflect criticism that their focus on social issues is selective or only targets one community.
It complicates the narrative, certainly.
It definitely adds another layer to the discourse around caste and social justice in India. That's quite insightful.
Okay, let's pivot back slightly to the reshuffle itself, beyond just this potential Pasmanda appointment.
Right, the broader changes.
It sounds like this could be a pretty significant shakeup overall. We're hearing the PMO has been really active in evaluating how various ministers have performed.
That's standard practice before any major reshuffle. You assess the track record, who's delivered, who maybe hasn't.
And the word is changes could affect maybe, at least a dozen ministries?
That's the kind of number being floated, yes, which suggests a fairly substantial review.
And the Ministry of Minority Affairs is definitely one of those said to be under the microscope.
Makes sense, given the focus we've been discussing.
Currently, Kiran Rijiju holds that portfolio, but there's chatter he might be moved elsewhere.
That speculation is out there.
Which, of course, opens the door for this potential Pasmanda appointment as a Minister of State in Malfas.
Right. Working alongside the main cabinet minister, or potentially even.
Or potentially taking over the main role. Though Malhas seems the stronger rumor right now. That would still send a huge message. Just to clarify, Amma usually assists the senior cabinet minister, but can also have independent charge of specific areas within the ministry.
Either way, placing a Pasmanda leader specifically within the Ministry of Minority Affairs would carry immense symbolic weight. And it could potentially influence the ministry's policy direction, too.
Definitely. And we're hearing whispers about other key ministries, too, like information and broadcasting.
Yeah, that's been mentioned. Urban development, too.
Petroleum and natural gas, law and justice. Even the Ministry for Development of the Northeastern Region, donor.
Coal and mines, electronics, and IT. The list seems quite extensive.
It really does sound like it could be a fairly wide-ranging restructuring.
If changes happen across that many important portfolios, it would certainly signal a major reassessment by the leadership. Looking at government objectives, the team's capabilities in those key areas.
There's also that one person, one post principle the BJP often talks about.
Ah, yes, trying to avoid individuals holding both major party posts and government positions simultaneously.
Right. So with J P Nadda stepping down as party president, if that principle is applied strictly,
It could trigger other changes in the cabinet, yeah. If someone currently in the cabinet is also holding a significant party role, they might have to choose.
or be asked to choose.
Exactly. The idea behind that rule generally is to spread leadership opportunities, prevent too much power concentrating, so its enforcement can definitely ripple through during a reshuffle.
Okay, so let's step back now. Big picture. What could putting a Pasmanda Muslim in the union ministry actually mean for India?
Yeah, what are the potential implications?
Well, it's clearly more than just a symbol, although the symbolism itself is powerful.
Undeniably potent, yes.
It could signal a real, maybe evolving commitment from the government towards broader inclusivity in its leadership ranks.
Mhm.
You know, when communities see someone from their own background sitting at the high table, so to speak.
It can be incredibly affirming, a sign that their voices, their concerns are being heard at the highest levels.
It fosters that sense of belonging, right? It encourages participation.
Absolutely. Representation matters for building trust, ensuring diverse perspectives get factored into policy. It's vital for a healthy democracy.
Well, we also need a dose of realism here.
Always.
One appointment, however significant symbolically, isn't a magic wand. It's not going to instantly fix all the deep-rooted challenges Pasmanda Muslims face.
No, of course not. The issues are complex and longstanding.
We're talking about persistent economic inequality, lack of access to quality education, and jobs sometimes enduring social stigma in places.
Systemic issues require systemic solutions.
Exactly. Now, government schemes like, say, Ujwala for cooking gas or PMO as Yohana for housing, they've likely helped many individuals, including Pasmanda.
Sure, those welfare schemes aim for broad reach.
But there's still a long way to go for genuine, widespread upliftment and empowerment for the community as a whole.
It underscores that representation, while important, needs to be backed up by concrete, sustained policy action. Well-funded programs targeting the root causes of marginalization.
And you can bet the opposition parties will be watching this like hawks.
But for sure.
We can probably expect to hear cries of tokenism.
That's almost guaranteed.
And, they might have a point if it is just a symbolic gesture without real follow-through on addressing those deeper issues.
Then it risks falling short, yeah. It can seem like just optics, not genuine change. That scrutiny from the opposition is, in a way, part of the democratic process. Keeps the pressure on.
True. But let's flip that. If this move is genuine, if it's followed by consistent action,
If it's part of a broader, sustained strategy.
then it could actually set a really important precedent in Indian politics, couldn't it?
How so?
It might put pressure on other political parties. Suddenly, they might feel they also need to focus more actively on Pasmanda representation within their own party structures, among their candidates.
Ah, I see. It could create a kind of competitive dynamic. If one major party makes a visible effort, others might feel compelled to follow suit to avoid losing ground with this significant demographic.
Exactly. This large, previously somewhat politically overlooked group might suddenly become a much more central focus across the entire political spectrum.
That's a very plausible outcome. Increased attention could potentially benefit the community in the longer run, forcing parties to actually compete for their support with real commitments.
So as we wrap up this deep dive today, thinking about this potential reshuffle and the specific focus on Pasmanda Muslims,
Yeah.
I think the big takeaway, the thing for listeners to really chew on, is thinking about those broader implications.
Right. Beyond the headlines of the reshuffle itself.
Is this genuinely a step towards a more inclusive political reality in India? Or is it more political maneuvering?
And crucially, perhaps,
Go on.
will it translate into tangible, lasting improvements in the day-to-day lives of people in marginalized communities like the Pasmandas? That's the ultimate question, isn't it?
Absolutely. Representation is one thing, real progress on the ground is another. It's definitely something worth watching closely as things develop in the coming months.
Indeed. It forces us to think about what meaningful representation looks like and how political shifts connect or sometimes don't connect to real social and economic change for everyone.